You need to know about how the AMP linker changes analytics for AMP. Here's why. Hi everybody, Eric Enga here. Really pleased to tell you that today we've got Ben Morss from Google. He is a developer advocate that works on things like AMP and page speed and all kinds of really cool stuff.
Thank you.
And we are doing an indie style video today. Just to get a little raw, but we're going to talk a little bit about, let's start talking about the Client ID API in AMP and how it came about to exist and what it was for.
Notice also my indie camera shaking over there. This indicates authenticity.
Oh, there you go. Excellent.
The audience appreciated that. Although I went out of frame for a second to make it even worse. So anyway, back to your question. This came about because of a problem introduced by AMP caches. So as you may know, one of the things that makes AMP fast is the idea of AMP caches. Web spiders like Google's and also now Microsoft Bing's out there are looking for pages that meet the AMP validation rules, that are valid AMP pages. When they find these things, they go ahead and stick these web pages into caches, which will then store your HTML, optimize your images, make things extra fast. Not only do Google and Microsoft and other companies have data centers around the world that can serve pages quickly, but also, even more importantly, if you load up an AMP page from Google search, for example, it will in some cases actually preload the HTML in an invisible area called an iframe that can't be seen. So Google search results appear over there, and your page might get preloaded in the background secretly. So then when the user actually taps or clicks on it, then your page appears really fast. This is possible because Google search knows that AMP can control how much JavaScript is on the page, other things about the page. It controls when images load, so it knows that the user isn't paying for extra battery life or data loading all the stuff they don't actually want. Also, I didn't mention this before, it's also privacy preserving. So it ensures that no data about the user gets sent to other sites until the user wants it to. Anyway, that's a lot of stuff about that. So, yes, the client ID. You're asking about this thing over here. So the problem was with this that analytics packages would be confused because let's say that you go to a site like eric.com, but you go there on the AMP cache instead. So perhaps you're actually at google.com looking at the eric.com page as shown by google.com. You click on a link somewhere on eric.com and you end up on eric.com itself. So you actually have traveled from google.com to eric.com. Analytics packages think you're a new user. They don't know who you are, and so they think it's a whole different user, and thus you have these horrible bounce rates.
Yep, and it's really interesting because that would often result in situations where the analytics you would have running in the Google cache version of your page would show very high bounce rates, like you said, very short times per session, very few page views per session, that kind of stuff. But there were some limitations in the Client ID API that caused you to invent a new thing called AMP linker. What's that?
Also true. Well, back to the Client ID for a minute. So I have indeed, as you've said, seen people say, I've got like a 95% bounce rate from AMP, why is this? And I say, did you use Client ID or AMP linker? And they say, what are those things? So the Client ID API, what that is it's a way to track users essentially using cookies, which is how people usually get tracked across the web. So analytics packages can know if you see the page first on google.com and then eric.com, it's still you because there's cookies that will actually track who the person is. But the problem is that some browsers are blocking what's called third-party cookies. So if I'm on google.com and request a cookie from eric.com, some browsers may block that request for security reasons, which is totally reasonable. So this is why AMP linker was invented. The AMP linker uses URL query parameters instead. So it adds query parameters to the URL, also standard practice in the worlds of analytics and ads. And that will let the user be identified from domain to domain, from google.com to eric.com without using cookies at all.
So the official recommendation then is to use AMP linker now because it solves this third-party cookie / browser blocking problem.
Exactly. AMP linker is just more reliable in all cases. Now, an even better solution, though, which is harder to do for most people, but is being done right now, is called signed exchanges. This is the new technology that Chrome supports, other browsers are also considering supporting. Essentially, what this is it's a way where you can say, as an owner of Eric.com, hey, actually, Google.com served my page. I know that this is an AMP cache. So I'm going to say that actually this really is my content. I'm going to provide a cryptographic signature which says this is my content, wherever it's served from, Google.com or Eric.com. And then actually Chrome and soon more browsers will use Eric.com instead of Google.com. So your page is always Eric.com, whether it's on an AMP cache or Eric.com. Eric.com all the time, and then this problem goes away completely. So with luck, if browsers support this in the near future, this whole analytics problem will no longer exist.
So this is a very, very cool solution because, as I understand it, as long as the browser supports the signed exchange, then you're independent of doing anything specific in any analytics package. It resolves this for everyone.
It solves a lot of different problems, actually. One of which also is that you don't want to have your page necessarily showing somewhere on the top, Google.com or some other domain up there. You want to have your domain up there. So this makes that possible, even if a cache of some sort is making it faster.
So that's awesome. Well, thank you so much for these great insights, Ben. And for those of you out there watching, if you enjoyed this episode of Here's Why, please don't whack it, just hit the subscribe now button below, and you'll get to see more of these great episodes in the future.